Hello, wrestling fans. Boy, do we have a special treat for everyone today, right here in Minnesota, where we're trying to get through this winter. But hey, we still find the amazing guests, and this is one of my favorites of all time, one of the great women wrestlers of all time. And with all this stuff coming with the Women's Royal Rumble coming up this weekend, what a better time to just get a chance to talk and catch up a little bit with the great Molly Holly. Thank you so much for joining us today, Molly.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, have you been able to stay warm this winter? I know. Did you guys get in this last like 12 to 15 inches of snow?
We did get hit with a snow blast, which really is just part of the deal when you live here. But I was fully prepared. I have two snow blowers, two shovels, and a 1972 Arctic Cat snowmobile suit that has never failed me. That thing, I've worn it since I was a little kid. It was my mom's in 1972, but she passed it down to me, and I've been wearing it every winter since I was like 10. And the thing is awesome. So yeah, I've been staying warm, and I didn't get stuck in my own driveway or anything like that. I've been healthy enough to do some shoveling and snow blowing, and things are good on my end.
Well, that's wonderful. Yeah, some of our wrestling friends down in North Carolina seemed to got hit, and they didn't seem to quite know what to do with the 2 inches of snow that they got, but they're just used to it. And yeah, I have one of those big winter army coats that my dad gave me, and he said, "Oh, you should always." And I remember when he first gave it to me, I'm like, "Oh, this is just crazy," and now I'm sure appreciative of it. And
yeah,
well, it kind of reminds.
It's to look cool. It's just to look cool when you're wearing some hand-me-down something or other, but really, warm is the new cool.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'd much rather stay. When the wind chill says -30 out there, I don't care what I look like. I just don't want to freeze and have parts of me fall off or something like that.
Right.
Well, we met many, many years ago at an event that was called the Polar Plunge, and I don't quite have a year. I'm going to say that was maybe 2006 or 2007. Does that sound about right?
That could be. Yeah, that sounds about right. Somewhere in there. Yeah, White Bear Lake, the Special Olympics was doing a fundraiser, and I had never jumped into a hole cut in a frozen lake before, but it was something to raise some money for Special Olympics, and it was a lot of fun. So, I mean, it wasn't as dangerous as I expected it to be because they had like all these safety crews, and the water was really only like 4 feet deep or something. So I was a little disappointed in like the risk factor, but the money got raised, and that's really the point, and everybody had fun. So yes, I do remember that is where we met.
Yeah, it was, I believe, Slam Wrestling picked up the article for some reason, and this was back in a time before you could really, like WrestleCon and stuff hadn't started yet, so it was a little bit harder to meet wrestlers because you didn't have all these opportunities. There were still some conventions and stuff like that, but it was a lot harder to meet wrestlers back at that time. And so when Slam picked up the article, it's just like, oh, this is good. And I remember going to a Polar Plunge in my small town in Wisconsin, and I'm like, oh, there'll be about 30 people there, and so it'll be really easy to find Molly, and I can go over and get an autograph, and they'll just be really cool, and I'll watch the thing. And then wow, there were like a few hundred people there that day because that was my first time moving to the big city when I was going to school up there, but and coming from a small town in Wisconsin, it kind of shocked me. But it was I was able to still track you down because you said you were going as Supergirl, and that was the one thing that saved me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to find you that day. And now it's been many years later. I've met many wrestlers going to things like WrestleCon and stuff like that. But you were still one of the earliest, and we had the Minnesota connection on top of that. And then on top of that, Special Olympics. It's just a really good thing. When I was in college, I was the swim coach, and they came up to me and they asked me if I'd like to coach Special Olympics as for the swim team on top of that, at top of the college. And I'm like, yeah, I love coaching swimming, and that'd be a really cool thing. And I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but I was just amazed at, it was just so awe-inspiring because those athletes, they they were such a team. They were more of a team than any college team or any high school team I was ever a part of.
Oh,
Just cheering each other on at the meets. If one of them won, they all won, and I think there was like a life
yeah.
lesson for all of us, and that is like we're so individual minded that on a team, even on a
Mhm.
team, and yet to see those athletes do it that way was just, I mean, it was one of the best. I'm so glad they asked me because it was one of the best decisions of my life to do that. And I wouldn't have done that if, I mean, it probably wouldn't have come to me on my own. But then since they asked, it was good. So I kind of encourage other people to do that. And maybe you're not a swim coach, but like, I know like things like art, like I have no artistic ability whatsoever, but maybe you're good at crafts and stuff like that. They could always use volunteers in that way. Or maybe you're good at telling stories. Maybe you're one of these camping people does the summer camping things. That certainly wouldn't be me either. I don't not like camping at all. But find your niche in life and go out and volunteer with like Special Olympics because they certainly love volunteers and not only will you be helping someone, you'll be growing yourself inside. I think you could probably
Right.
have that same experience.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's volunteering definitely takes you outside of yourself, and you can see the world from a fresh perspective. So I definitely agree with you that everyone should get out and stretch their comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, and so that was many years ago before WrestleCon, and they yeah, it gave, and thanks to Slam, I think, for picking up the article as because hey, I got to meet you, and now over the years at a few of the wrestling conventions and stuff, we run into each other every once in a while, and it's really cool,
Hmm.
fellow Minnesotan. And so
Yeah.
that's something probably a lot of fans don't know the story about. Like when you go to something like WrestleMania or something, like now that you're retired, but you still know some of the people in the business, and of course it meant so much to you. It's like, how do you end up going to a WrestleMania week? Are you pretty much invited every year, or is that something you have to really plan ahead, or how does that work?
I'm not invited every year. Usually, what happens is, so wherever WrestleMania is, there's also some other type of independent convention or pro wrestling show, something because they know, hey, the pro wrestling fans are going to be there. They might be able to draw money. So sometimes I get a call from the WWE, and they want me to do like a fan access thing or a table for three for the network or some type of thing for them. But if they don't call me, then usually the minor league or the independent thing calls me and says, hey, we're having a convention. Do you want to come? So usually WrestleMania weekend, I am doing some kind of autograph signing type of thing. I always make Vince McMahon a priority. Like he's, obviously my whole career is because of him, and so if they ask me to do something, I say yes. But I'm usually around doing some type of meeting fans on WrestleMania weekend.
Okay, yeah. So, like, well, I know a lot of us did see you doing the table for three, and that's a really good show on the WWE Network, and for all the ones that have been done. Then, and we had you and I want to say, were you with Michelle McCool
And Candace.
and
So
Candace?
I've actually done them twice.
Twi-
The last one I did was with Michelle McCool and Candace, and then the one before that was with Medusa and Ivory.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, and that's just like that's another great way just to really share your. So did WWE call you first, and then you decided to go to WrestleMania, or you were already kind of like you said, you kind of already knew you were going to be there, and you let them know, or how does that final phone
Well,
call?
yeah, they call me. They would call me and say, hey, and usually like 2 months before or something, they'll call and say, hey, if you don't have plans already, or if you're not busy, would you like to come be a part of what we're doing? And then I say, yes, I would love to. So that's but they don't call me every year. Sometimes it's always a surprise. I guess
Okay.
like one time they called me 2 years in a row, and then they didn't call me, and then so it's I don't know. I guess it's always a surprise to me if they ask me to come be a part of their festivities, but I'm always happy to do it if they do call.
Okay, and then do you like get to be backstage at WrestleMania then, or is that just too many people back? How does that work?
So usually the people that are no longer on TV or aren't a part of the storylines and that, they have a special like skybox for us, I guess, where they cater the food and just have a nice viewing area, the skybox. So that's usually where I go to watch the actual show.
Oh, okay. So that, I mean, that makes, yeah, I mean, I never knew that, but that makes sense because it's like, so you get to, you still feel like you're a VIP in a way, but at the same time you're not in the way of this of the actual production and
Yes.
stuff like that. Okay, see, and
Right.
this
Yep.
is these are the exact questions that all of us wrestling fans want to know, and we just sit here like, I wonder how this works out, and that's so cool to know that. Okay, so you guys,
Yeah, they treat us really well. I mean, they call us legends. Those of us who are no longer on TV, and they put us up in a nice hotel, and they give us a limousine ride to the arena, and yeah, they really treat us like stars. Like it's kind of a fun change of pace for a weekend because I live a very ordinary middle class life. You know, like I just choose to live a simple life, and so to spend a weekend being in limousines and being escorted places, being called a legend, you know, it's like, oh, thanks. You know, it's exciting and fun.
oh yeah, well that would be. And then I guess one more part of us is, I'm guessing it's kind of similar with the Hall of Fame because I'm sure there's only certain, I mean, they certain amount of room, and they're trying to get the fans and stuff too. It's like, if you're there, is it just kind of, well, if they have room you can come to the Hall of Fame, or do they have enough room for all you legends to come to the Hall of Fame, and how does that work?
Well, I'm not invited every year to go to that. A couple of times, like last year, Beth Phoenix called me and said, can you be my guest at the Hall of Fame? And I said yes. And so I was a guest of Beth Phoenix, so that's how I kind of got invited last year. If I'm already working for the WWE, they usually will save chairs for people who are doing the fan access and that kind of thing to make sure there's room for us. But if it's a year that I'm just not doing any autographs or any network stuff for them, I probably wouldn't just go there and try to find a seat. Like I've only been when I've been invited by either someone who's a part of it or by, you know, the company itself.
Okay, and going back, I guess many years, because I guess the first Hall of Fame you would have been still an actual active wrestler. Is that correct? Because that would have been around
Yes.
WrestleMania.
Yes.
I mean, I guess there was an earlier one with like Andre the Giant and Fred Blassie, but I'm talking like the one when they kind of brought it back, and it had been 2005 with Bobby Heenan, Pete Rose, and stuff like that. What was it like as an
Yes.
active wrestler going to the Hall of Fame?
It was so long. We were dying. I swear, like, we were not prepared for the fact that we were going to sit there for like 5 hours. I don't know if they had if it was live or if they edited it for TV or what they did, but all of us were starving. We were cranky. Every time somebody would give their acceptance speech, we were like praying that their speech would be like 1 minute long. It was we just were not prepared at all for what was actually going to happen. So I just remember that if we heard a little crinkling, meaning it's like of snacks, like if somebody had snacks hidden in their purse, everyone would be like, "Can I have some? Can I have some?" We were just dying. So yeah, I wish I could say like, "Oh, it was so cool to be a part of the first," you know, but no, it was just like torture because we're all wearing super fancy clothes. It's really uncomfortable, and we don't want to get up to go to the bathroom because we don't want to, you know, draw any attention to ourselves and away from the show. And yeah, so I would not say it's one of my most memorable positive things that I did.
Well, no, even Bobby Heenan's speech, because I mean, Bobby Heenan's speech was good, but yeah, I could see. I think they did kind of taper it in the future years. And yeah, maybe they really because that one even has its own DVD all to itself, and it's like a 2 DVD set. So yeah, I think they were really probably kind of learning, and maybe they did get a little of the feedback because in the next year I think Hulk Hogan was inducted as the headliner for the WrestleMania 21 crowd, and it did seem to be a little bit shorter. So yeah, maybe they did learn that. But okay, quite the experience, and like you said, they sure treat you well. But then every once in a while they're gonna try something new, and they have to learn what the time works like with that and stuff like that, and you guys have to learn how to be prepared because this could go on for 5 hours. Because
Right.
did they do because was a lot of that because of the production for the TV and stuff like that, or I mean, I guess it wasn't really on TV, but on like for the DVD and stuff. Did they have to do pauses and stuff that we don't see on the DVD, where they're actually just kind of going between things? Was that a lot of it?
Yeah, I think that there was dead time in between presenters, and then they'd do like a video package, and then we'd be like waiting. So I didn't know what was going on, like actually behind stage, because I was in the audience, but or on the floor. So I don't really know what was taking so long between things. But yeah, the speeches were long, the setup between the things were long. Everything was it just dragged on.
Well, okay, so yeah, that's just another great story, and well, I know you're on a lot of people's short lists, and we hope that someday you get the call yourself, and because you certainly deserve it, and I'm sure that would be a great experience for you and all your family and friends and stuff to be a part of, and it probably won't seem as long that day, and we're hoping for that. Actually, we're hoping that someday WrestleMania comes to Minneapolis, and what a more fitting time that would be as well.
That would be really awesome.
Yeah. Well, now we have this weekend we have the Women's Royal Rumble coming up, which is just huge, and I know a lot of you've probably been asked about it a million times from people, and just because I mean I'm sure it's a proud moment for all you past women. Because it's just this kind of the progression of it. Just every year and every generation, it just seems like more and more happens with the women. But back in the time when you and Trish and Lita and Victoria and Gail Kim and all the other women, I mean, that was the start of they didn't call it the women's revolution yet, but that was the start of something when you guys had like main eventing Raw and stuff like that. And now you have 30 women going to be doing a part of the Royal Rumble. What was your thought when you first heard that?
Well, I remembered I did a 25 Diva Battle Royal at WrestleMania 25, and I just, as soon as I heard that 30 Diva or 30 Girl, I don't know what they call it these days, Royal Rumble or whatever, I just was remembering my time with that 25 Girl one, and how chaotic it was. It was like I'd never been a part of anything like that, you know, and so it was just a lot to absorb. But I remember being eliminated by Beth Phoenix back then, so that was super cool. That the girl who had given me so much praise in her speech was someone that I got to wrestle with her at WrestleMania 25, and she was able to eliminate me from the ring. But yeah, as far as like now, instead of it just being like a side act, with that the fact that it's a big deal. I mean, yeah, it's exciting. I was really happy that the girls have become so popular that they're able to be featured in the Royal Rumble, and I'm sure that, you know, it'll go down in history, and I'm sure a lot of great things will happen. But it's true that the things have changed a lot, because when I very first started training to be a wrestler, there was Sable was kind of like the most popular female character, and there was not a wrestling division in either WCW or WWF, and so everyone was like, well, why are you training to be a pro wrestler? Like, there's not even a women's championship right now. There's just like Sable walking people to the ring or whatever, and I don't really have a lot of the same giftings and talents that Sable does, and so it's just crazy that I stuck with it, and I said, well, I'm just going to do this pro wrestling thing, and even if I only work at VFWs for $20 on the weekends, I'll just do it because it's fun. And then, thankfully, because I did stick with it when the time was right, and they did have women's division, I was prepared for it.
Yeah, and that's just. I mean, yeah, you came. I mean, people know your story, so we don't have to go too much through it. But you came through WCW with the Macho Man, and then WWE ended up calling a little while later, and you ended up as. You started as. I mean, I think you had a couple matches, but your first main thing in WWE or WWF at the time was Mighty Molly, correct?
Well, they put me with Crash Holly first, so I was Crash's cousin, Molly Holly, and I partnered with Crash for a long time and had the romance with Spike Dudley, and then after that, then I teamed up with the Hurricane for just a brief time and did the Mighty Molly thing. So So I would say I was known as a Holly cousin for at least a year or so, my first year there.
Okay, yeah, the Holly cousin was first, and then yeah, and then they would always you'd always be in awkward situations with Crash with everything else going around, and I can even remember the one time where like somehow you and Crash, and then someone was attacking. I think the Dudleys were being attacked, and then somehow the Dudleys got ambushed by somebody, and then they blamed you and Crash for it because you guys set up the Dudleys and stuff like that. So yeah, that was certainly a wonderful storyline at that time. And yeah, it was just yeah. I mean, it's just looking back at those days, yeah, around the WrestleMania 17, WrestleMania 18 time. That was a good time. And then the purchase of WCW, where everything changed. And WrestleMania 18, you were a part of. That was, I guess, you had already made it to Mighty Molly then, and you won your first title. And a good trivia question for everybody: what was the first title that Molly Holly ever won? You could probably trick your friend a little bit, because I believe the first title you ever won in WWF was the Hardcore title for about an hour. Is that correct?
Yes, I think you are correct. The Hardcore Championship, I want to say, for like 47 minutes or something.
Okay, so you at least you know the minutes. You can't just say an hour because you have it down to the exact minutes. So, and that's just kind of, I mean, as a wrestling fan, as one of these people who does podcasts and stuff, so a crazy wrestling fan. I mean, if you don't mind, just take us back. Was that okay? So WrestleMania 18. How do you? I mean, do you know for a month ahead of time that you're going to become the Hardcore champion? Are they a week ahead of time, or do you remember any part of that?
I do. Okay, so Dean Malenko, who's one of my mentors and trainers and friends, he was a part of the behind-the-scenes crew of how things get put together. And the day before WrestleMania, he said, "Don't tell anybody that I'm telling you, but it's very possible that you may be involved with the Hardcore Championship tomorrow at WrestleMania." And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "He goes, I can't promise you because things change all the time, but it's just be ready just in case." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." And then sure enough, the day of WrestleMania, they told me that I'd be kind of start the end of my relationship with Hurricane, and that they were going to have me be a part of that skit or series or that match. I guess it kind of like ran throughout the show, so it wasn't really like a match, but yes, they told me officially the day of the show that I would be a part of it.
Okay, and I mean, sometimes wrestling purists look back at that and kind of shake their heads like, "Oh, the Hardcore title, that wasn't that wasn't the best thing ever." But remembering at the time as a fan, I mean, that was a pretty neat thing because for the one, it was a 24/7 belt, and and then so you'd just be watching Raw, SmackDown, or whatever else, and all of a sudden, right in the middle of a show, completely unexpected, the title would change hands, or maybe change hands once or twice, and they'd even have, because I mean, like, we have Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson winning the title and stuff like that. So this is WrestleMania 18. So this would have been your first WrestleMania. Was it? Oh, hey, I'm gonna be a part of WrestleMania 18. Was it? Oh, I'm not doing the. I mean, what was going through your head at that time? Was that still a thrill at that time? And did it seem like a big thing?
Oh, yeah, it absolutely was. And I like that I didn't have to have a match. There's a lot of stress when you have an actual, like, singles match at WrestleMania. So I loved the fact that I got to be a part of WrestleMania, but my part was small, so there's less stress. And it was just fun. And that Hardcore Championship, yeah, even though the title, changed hands several times per show, it really was just for the entertainment of the fans. And the fact that I got to be part of a little entertaining thing, and also like a behind-the-scenes thing you might not know is when Christian slammed the door on my face, which made me lose the title, we actually had to do that twice because the first time that we did it, the door fell off the hinges and fell on me, and they thought that I was injured. because it was a huge, solid, heavy oak door, and he slammed it. I fell down, and then the door came off its hinges and landed on me and like jabbed my leg. It bled a little bit, but like not that bad. So the whole crew was like, "Oh my gosh!" and they ran over and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I said I was okay, and then they had to run and grab the maintenance crew, and the maintenance guys drilled the door back up, and then we had to do it again. So getting a door slammed in your face and falling on the concrete twice in one night is, it's a bit taxing on the body. But we were just going to make it happen just to entertain the fans and make sure that it was turned out really good so that the fans would enjoy it.
Well, that's great, and that's an awesome story, and it also kind of, I think, solidifies that you were a true hardcore champion to have to take it twice, to take the heavy door and just be a part of that. And yeah, and that's I love hearing these stories because as a fan, it was always like, well, who's gonna win it next? And yeah, it's someone that we're not expecting to win it. We're not expecting Molly Holly to turn on the Hurricane, and all of a sudden Molly Holly's your new hardcore champion. It's like, what? Whoa! And then you can call your friends and tell them, hey, did you see that? And it was just crazy. Yeah, and like you said, you got to be a part of WrestleMania 18, and there would definitely be more WrestleManias to come and bigger matches to come. But this was your first little taste of WrestleMania, and like you said, just to entertain the fans in that way, and yeah, because it was certainly a memorable moment and a great thing, and yeah, because I believe I'm gonna guess I'm sure you know this more than I do. It was probably because that's kind of what started then your feud, breaking away from the Hurricane. You became the women's title champion at least within the next 3 or 4 months, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I don't remember when I won the championship, but it's true. After Hurricane and I kind of went our separate ways, then I had my hair turned dark and kind of changed up the gimmick a little bit, and then shortly after that, I did become champion. So yeah, it was until you had mentioned it, I had actually forgotten that I had been a champion as the blonde kind of cuter character, because I had thought, I didn't get to be champion until I turned bad guy or whatever, but I forgot about the hardcore championship. So yes, I got the hardcore championship when I was kind of a good guy character, and then when I turned heel, I ended up winning the women's championship a couple times.
Yes, and I'm one of those wrestling nerds who, I like to make spreadsheets of all the champions and follow how many days everyone's the champion and stuff like that too, because I guess if I didn't love wrestling, that's why I wouldn't be doing stuff like this. So yeah, I follow stuff like that. And so I honestly, I do not, I'm reading this as we go. You won the championship at the King of the Ring on June 23rd. So that would have been probably about 2 or 3 months later as you had your first rivalry with Trish then. And you held on to that title, as it's telling me. It looks like you lost the title for the first time in September 22nd. So for that summer, the summer of 2002, you would have been the champion then, and that was pretty cool. That's definitely a memorable time for us fans.
Nice.
And 2002, I believe that's also just a little tidbit of maybe you could, because I love the way you've been filling in on some of these stories that maybe no one ever hears, and because I just don't want it to be the same as a normal shoot that everyone else does. You went on Fear Factor that year. Do you mind sharing anything about that story? And because a bunch of the WWE wrestlers went there, and once again, I mean, we get back to that. I believe you raised money for charity, which is a really cool thing for all you guys to be able to do.
I raised money for Prison Fellowship Ministry. It's the Chuck Colson Ministry, Prison Fellowship.
Oh, Chuck Colston, yes.
It helped.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry,
so
go ahead.
I heard about that was just that Prison Fellowship gives gifts to children whose parents are incarcerated, but the gifts are from the parent. So the parent reaches out to, it's called Angel Tree through Prison Fellowship, and then, because there's a lot of kids who have parents that are incarcerated and can't be there for Christmas, but to be able to open a present from their parent is really an amazing thing. So that's why at Fear Factor I chose Prison Fellowship Ministries. But yeah, when I first was told or asked if I could be on Fear Factor, it turned out that some of the other girls were asked first and they didn't want to do it. So when it got pitched to me, they're like, hey, it's on NBC, it's a really popular show, and I had never heard of it because I didn't watch TV because my whole life was revolved around my job. And so I said, yeah, I'll do it. And I called my brother, my younger brother Luke, and I was like, hey, Luke, I'm going to be on this show called Fear Factor. And he goes, oh, you're going to have to eat worms. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, they eat worms on that show. And I was like, they do not. I'm like, dude, that's fake. I'm like, if they do that, it's just to fool the audience, to make the audience go, ooh. I'm like, they're not actually going to have people do that. Well, I was wrong, and my brother was right. I could not believe that all of these stunts were legit, like real. It was not fake. It was real. And so, yeah, I went to Los Angeles with the crew as Lita, Jackie, Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, and Tess. And all of us were there doing the filming, and we did not know about the stunts until it actually happened. And I did really good on the helicopter stunt because I can climb things easily. But that next one, it wasn't worms for me, but it was bile, cod liver oil, fish sauce, pig brains. It was disgusting. It was disgusting, and that's where I did not win. I tried super hard to choke down a blender full of disgusting animal parts, but I failed, and $10,000 still went to prison fellowship, but I did not advance to the final stage.
Okay, so yeah, and so you got, was that something that, was the people who contacted you, was that more, so it kind of started at WWE, like WWE probably agreed to do it, and then they're like, okay, just find us 6 people, and they kind of asked you that way?
Yep.
And then, hey, why don't we ask the person who's willing to do 2 takes on the slamming the door on her face, and she'll do it.
Right.
She has no fear of anything. So, okay, well that's quite the thing. And yeah, every once in a while you see wrestlers on something, whether it be Family Feud. I don't think you'd have had to eat worms, but they haven't done that in a while now. I think that was back in like 1990. So. But that was...
Yeah, I think I remember Trish was on some show where it was some kind of trivia, and Trish is really smart, but they were asking her American President trivia, and she's like, I'm Canadian. Like, I don't know who the American presidents are. Like, I'm Canadian, you know? So I felt bad for her that she got put in a situation where she didn't know the answers that most of us would know, because we know who Richard Nixon is or we know who Ronald Reagan is. But when she's a kid in a different country, how would she know what the presidents are in other places?
Yeah, and you have to think about that. Yeah, because ask us who the Canadian prime ministers are, and we're I couldn't even tell you who the current Canadian prime minister is, and
I couldn't either.
Yeah, and I mean, I would like to think I'm kind of well versed on a few things, but. Yeah, that might have been that Weakest Link. I think she might have been on that, so I don't know if that was the one. But
maybe.
Yeah, I loved watch. All those things are fun. Yeah, just to see you guys in the real environment. But yeah, at the same time, yeah, it would have been nice for her. But I'm sure, yeah, once again, people were winning money for charity, and we got to see more wrestlers on TV and get to see them in real life a little bit. And well, right now I know real life is one of the things is the Academy in the Twin Cities area there. I actually last week I just got to see one of the graduates of the Academy, James Tapia. He was in a match with Ken Anderson, one of the trainers with Steel Domain Wrestling. And as the people who listen to this know, that I do the Steel Domain Wrestling podcasts every time they have a show, and have been a big part of that this last year. Actually, it's been over a year now. We've been doing that as part of the show, but you are part of the Academy from the female standpoint. And do you want to tell us anything about that?
Yeah, well, we do have another class coming up in February here. I want to say it's the 6th, but don't quote me on that. It is on the website, but yeah, so Sean and Ken have done an awesome job running the school, and they do have guest trainers that come in. Billy Gunn's actually going to be coming in to the Academy later this month to do like a seminar, and so yeah, everything at the school is going awesome. We're looking forward to the next round of students. I mean, the graduates still come by and still continue to train, and it is it's really rewarding to be at an independent show, and then to see the people who first came into the Academy with just a dream to do it, you know, and then they've gained the skills, and now they're starting to do independent shows locally, and they're just building up their experience, and so it's really fun to kind of watch the process of the students making their dreams come true. Yeah,
and you are you the full-fledged female trainer? Are you a guest trainer, or how does that work?
Yeah, I would say I'm a guest trainer. Ken Anderson does most of the training. Like, he's really gifted at training, and he loves it. It's his passion, and it's his full-time job. I have another full-time job not related to wrestling, and I do volunteer work, and there's other things that occupy the majority of my time. So I'm not there every single day, but I am on staff there, and I do participate, and I do kind of keep tabs on who's doing what, and who's progressing, who's kind of our next possible star, and so I don't pull the girls aside and just train with the girls. The girls there that are in the school learn everything that the guys do, so they're not treated differently or special. And I wasn't either. When I trained, I didn't have a female trainer and only train with girls. I just jumped right in the mix with everybody else so I could learn all aspects of it. So really the girls and the guys get trained the same at the academy. And so when I do go there and do some coaching, I train both the girls and the guys.
Okay, yeah, and I've talked to Ken about it a few times as being local, and then I know he's so proud of it. And is it Arian Davari? It's one of the Davari brothers is also a big part of that, and I've even gotten a chance to talk to him a little bit. And yeah, it's a wonderful thing that's in the Twin Cities. It's for people who want to take that first step into seeing what it's like to become a pro wrestler. So yeah, look up the Academy Wrestling Twin Cities online, and I'm sure you can find information about it. And otherwise, if you're not planning on being a wrestler but just enjoy wrestling like I do, yeah, look for where they're going to be. The Steel Domain Wrestling is a great place for them to be at, and they run a show in the Twin Cities but once every 6 weeks, and that's just, if you love wrestling, that you get to see some studio wrestling in the Twin Cities with Steel Domain. And I know that a lot of the people that you see on TV and stuff have either been part of something like Steel Domain or whatever was the equivalent, and they're part of the world or part of the United States. So that's just so cool to hear you doing that these days. Well, man, we sure covered a lot today, and and I love the stories, and yeah, I learned some stories, and as a wrestling fan, I'm kind of marking out as getting to hear a few of the behind the scenes stuff. Now I mean, the first thing I'm going to do after I hang up is going to go watch WrestleMania 18 and watch that door slam again for the Christian part. Like, oh, that would hurt, and wow, you got to do that twice. And hey, I could see it's a little bent there, and okay. And so, is there any other stories or anything that you would like to share before we have to wrap up today?
Well, I would like to mention that my friend, I have one of my personal stories in a book called More Than a Conqueror by Portia Baxter. So my friend Portia Baxter just released a book recently, and you can get it on Amazon, and it's her story of recovery from addiction, and then at the end of the book she has other people's stories of inspiration and hope, and my story about food addiction is in there. And so if you want to go on Amazon and look up More Than a Conqueror by Portia Baxter, you can learn more about my life outside of wrestling.
Okay, what a wonderful opportunity, yeah, to get to read stories and realize that, yeah, sometimes we look at you guys as immortals that could, I mean, and WWE even, I think they call you immortals sometime, another way that they like to treat you well. But yeah, as we get to know you guys as people, it's like sometimes the road is has some bumps in it. You guys go through the same ups and downs of life that all of us do, and sometimes that can be really inspiring for us to know that even our heroes, because all of us in life go through that time where just life is hard, and it's like how am I ever going to get out of this situation that I'm in? And you just have to persevere and find friends, find people, find help sometimes, and get to that next stage. And the people that we see on TV every week, they go through the same difficulties as we do. They're playing a character to entertain us and to be a part of it, and that's, for a lot of them, that's their livelihood too. But then they get home and they face the same challenges we do every day in life. And yeah, it's just, yeah. So anything that you guys can do for that, to share with us people that might be hurting, is just, yeah, I thank you guys for that. And all of you who have done stuff like that in the past. And because I know personally a lot of people that a wrestler has has stepped up and just done something wonderful for. And I don't want to mention specifics because there's so many of them, but especially do want to mention DDP and his. I know he has helped so many people, and to see Scott Hall 10 years ago and to see Scott Hall today is just such a. Yeah, and yeah, it's just amazing, and what yeah. So thank all you guys. You guys are our heroes, but at the same time, we all have real life too, and we can all lose ourselves for a few hours a week watching wrestling, just getting to let our imaginations run wild. But then getting back to real life, we need help too as people, and for all you guys who take the time to do that, and to take the time, sometimes it's just even meeting us and just saying hi and signing an autograph, taking a picture and stuff like that. We sure do appreciate that. So yeah, go. Can you give us the author and the title one more time?
More Than a Conqueror by Portia Baxter.
Yeah, I would check that out on Amazon if you guys get a chance, and yeah, and read Molly's story and be inspired. So, well, yeah, I guess we're to the end of our interview, but the pleasure has been all mine. And if someone would have told me 20 years ago that I'd be getting my chance to interview wrestlers and talk to them, share stories, share even moments that we've experienced together, I'd be like, no, you're kidding me. And now to get to do this every week is just amazing for me. But it's my friendships that I built up with you guys that have helped this and just being nice to me the times that I met you originally. So thank you all for that, and especially thank you, Molly, for joining us today. And I hope that we can run into each other at a convention again sometime soon, and it's always fun. And and just thank you for sharing all the stories today and taking us through the life of you as a wrestler and some of the stories that maybe people haven't heard.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I've had a great time.
Okay, well, this was Molly Holly. You're listening to Wrestling Unabridged, and we will hopefully have more chances like this to share with you in the future. But for now, we hope you enjoyed this presentation, because if you're listening to this and if you made it through this whole thing, then you got to be just as big of a wrestling fan as I am. So thanks for taking this